Greetings everyone. I'm Dinesh from ENH iSecure and thank you for joining this session. Today's presentation is about integrating Office 365 with Okta. Before getting into that, we shall have a brief about Okta and the supported SSO protocols by Okta, followed by our use case for today's session. Let's get on to the agenda now. Here is our agenda for this session. A short intro about Okta, supported SSO protocols by Okta, and an overview of our use case along with the prerequisites to achieve this integration, followed by the integration flow, and finally benefits out of this integration. Now let's get on to the intro about Okta. Okta, an identity provider born in cloud and is hosted on AWS platform. It was co-founded in year 2009 by Todd McCann and Frederick Crest, two former Salesforce employees. Okta has its presence across the globe and is headquartered in San Francisco. Okta is recognized as a leader by Gartner Magic Quadrant for Access Management for 7 consecutive times and offers an operational uptime of 99.99%, which is about a downtime of 52.60 minutes per year, which is quite remarkable. Okta comes with two offerings, Workforce Identity Cloud and Customer Identity Cloud. In today's session, we will be focusing on Workforce Identity Cloud. Workforce Identity Cloud is a platform built by Okta for your employees, contractors, or partners to access your organization's digital resources. Workforce Identity Cloud has a wide range of products and features such as Universal Directory, which integrates with multiple sources like Active Directory, HRMS, third-party identity providers, and more. Adaptive MFA, which goes beyond the regular MFA with context-based risk signals for user validation. Next, SSO, a single sign-on to enhance the user's experience, eliminating the necessity of using multiple credentials to access multiple applications. With SSO in place, users can seamlessly access all the entitled applications from a single dashboard. Next, Okta Integrated Network, OIN, currently having an application integration of around 7.9K and is still counting. With these integrations in Okta, it is only a few clicks away for customization and provisioning for all your SaaS apps. Lifecycle management automates users onboarding, birth rate app access management, department-based app access management, assignments and deactivations with groups, rules and workflows. This is like a game changer for the IT admins who manages these tasks manually and reduces a lot of efforts with these automations. Along with these, Workforce Identity Cloud also offers advanced server access, privileged access management, access gateway, API management, devices access, and more. With this said, let's focus on single sign-on for our today's session. Okta's single sign-on is a product that allows users to log in for once and gain access to multiple applications and resources without having the strain of re-entering the credentials for the applications. Okta enables you to have SSO access to cloud, on-premises, and mobile applications with a single set of credentials. Once signed into Okta, you can launch any entitled web application without having to re-enter your credentials. Okta establishes a secure connection with the user's browser and then authenticates the user to Okta managed apps using the available SSO authentication methods. Okta mainly supports 4 SSO protocols: OpenID Connect, Secure Web Authentication, SAML, which is Security Assertion Markup Language, and WSFED. MS Office 365 is an app pre-integrated and available in OIN. We can browse through the OIN catalog and look out for Office 365 and the supported SSO protocols for our integration. Office 365 app supports 2 SSO protocols for the integration. Those are SWA and WSFED. Secure Web Authentication is a protocol developed by Okta for web applications which do not support federated sign-ons. By using this protocol, users are empowered on sign-on process which lets them to access the application by entering the credentials for the first time, and then the credentials are stored in the encrypted format using a strong AES encryption combined with the customer specific private key. For subsequent access to the app, the credentials are fed by Okta. Another way is WS-Fed. Web Services Federation is a XML-based protocol used for single sign-on, where Okta can act as a service provider or an identity provider. This authentication method is typically associated with Microsoft applications and works similarly to SAML. Whenever the user attempts to log into the application generates a request security token (RST) and forwards that to the SSO URL. Now the IDP parses the RST request and verifies the user identity in Active Directory. Upon validation, the identity provider generates a SAML assertion inside the request security token response and sends it to the web application. Once the RSTR is received by the web application, it will allow the users to log on to the application. Let's get into the use case to see more around SSO and how it works. Talking about our use case, let's consider an example. An organization has an on-premises Active Directory with its defined user structure and have purchased Office 365 licenses for their employees. Now users should be using their AD credentials to access the Office 365 products, and admins don't want to create the user accounts manually in Office 365 tenant. We can achieve this requirement in few steps. First, integrating the Active Directory with Okta tenant using Active Directory agent, and then importing the users and groups into Okta, followed by enabling delegated authentication for the groups in Active Directory. Now we must integrate the Office 365 app from OIN to the Okta tenant, followed by enabling provisioning for the integrated Office 365 app, and then finally assigning the users or groups imported from Active Directory to Office 365 app. This will enable the users to use their ID credentials to access the Okta dashboard and access the Office 365 app using single sign-on. There are few prerequisites to fulfill to achieve this integration. We shall see those in the next slide. Here are the prerequisites for this integration. An account with super administrator privileges in Okta tenant, a member server for Okta AD agent installation, and here are the specs. The server should be part of domain, and in our case, we have a AD domain acme.com. Next, the Office 365 tenant with onmicrosoft.com as a primary registered domain and a custom domain too. With these prerequisites, let's see the integration flow. As an overview of the integration, this use case is carried out in three phases. First, integrating Active Directory with Okta and importing the users and groups from Active Directory to Okta. Second, adding and configuring the Office 365 app from OIN with Okta. Finally, assignment of Active Directory users to Office 365 app in Okta. Well, our use case starts from integrating Active Directory with Okta. Integrating Active Directory with Okta requires installation of an Okta AD agent on the member server with the prerequisites from the previous slide. AD agent is a straightforward Windows application installation with the guided inputs from Setup Active Directory wizard in the Okta admin portal. This app can be downloaded into the member server by launching the Okta admin portal from the browser and initiating the directory integration wizard from the member server itself. Earlier, the AD agent used to create an API token during the installation in Okta tenant. Now, Okta introduced OAuth 2.0 protocol into this, and from AD agent version 3.18.0, the AD agent uses device registration and communication instead of API tokens. With this change, during the AD agent installation process, an activation code with URL appears on the screen so that the administrator can navigate to the URL and activate the device using the activation code which is populated on the screen during the installation process. That will take the administrator to a consent screen where the administrator should allow the access to register the agent to Okta. Upon confirmation from the administrator, the agent is now registered to Okta and completes the AD agent installation. Once the agent installation is complete, users and groups can be imported into Okta tenant with a delegated authentication, which will let the users to use their AD credentials to log on to Okta user dashboard. A point to note here, this delegated authentication is enabled by default. Once the AD agent is successfully integrated, provisioning options between Active Directory and Okta will be enabled. With the provisioning options, user creation, attribute sync, scheduled import, and deactivation can be configured, and this takes care of the lifecycle user management tasks. Additionally, delegated authentication in domain controller should be enabled for the selected OUs which are part of this integration and provide necessary permissions for the Okta service account for this delegation. With this step, delegation from domain controller end is taken care. With this entire process, users and groups are successfully imported into Okta, and this takes us to the next step, which is integrating Office 365 app to Okta. In this use case, we are integrating Office 365 app from OIN to Okta tenant using WS-Fed SSO protocol. As per the prerequisites, a custom domain is required to set up the integration. In this use case, we are not using Entra AD Connect to sync the user from Active Directory to Office 365. Instead, we have the task cut out for Okta to take care of this federation. When federation is enabled in Office 365 to custom domain, users are created in Office 365 by simply assigning the imported AD users into Office 365 app in Okta. Office 365 app integration requires a custom domain and a global administrator account from .onmicrosoft.com, the primary and default domain. By passing these credentials in integration process, we can fetch the custom domain from Office 365 tenant. Now we must add the custom domain for validation. Administrator credentials are validated here, and upon successful integration, federation will be enabled on the custom domain. We can see the custom domain with federated enabled in the Office 365 tenant. Next, followed by setting up the provisioning between Okta and Office 365. When provisioning is enabled, an enterprise app is auto-created and waits for the global administrator with all the necessary permissions to provide a consent for the enterprise app. Once the administrator approves the app from the consent screen, provisioning is enabled between Okta and Office 365 app. With provisioning options, users can be created, updated, and deactivated between Okta and Office 365. This leaves us with the final step, assignment. Now with the necessary things in place, AD imported users or groups can be assigned to Office 365 app. During the assignment, as provisioning is enabled, administrators are tasked to choose the licenses and roles for the users and groups, which is a one-time activity. Once the entitled role and license is selected, assigning the users to Office 365 app will create an account in Office 365 tenant, and the user can access the Office 365 app from their dashboard with the same AD credentials. This concludes the integration flow, and next headed towards the benefits out of this integration. Here are some of the benefits are not limited to out of this integration. As stated in the slide, with SSO configured between Office 365 and Okta, users can access the Office 365 app either from Okta user dashboard or directly by launching the application itself. Okta supports both service provider initiated flow and identity provider initiated flow for user authentication and authorization. This will have a great end user experience. With Active Directory integration, provisioning, and group assignment in place, IT admins no need to worry about creation of user accounts in Office 365 manually. A central admin pane for administrators to manage and automate the lifecycle tasks of the users eases out the admin efforts. This concludes the presentation, and thanks for joining the session. Hope this was informative.